Okay, when you want to know something, what do? You Google it, yeah? Okay. My Google is Hybris Aaron right now because I'm not sure that Google is going to give me the answers that I really need because I think Google is going to give me what I already have. Okay, perhaps not, but it's easier for me to really ask Hybris Aaron. Hybris Aaron is ancient. He is like really ancient. So I said, Hi, Prince Aaron. I want to know about the tree of good and evil and the tree of knowledge. So he says, what do you want to know about the tree of good and evil and the tree of knowledge? I says, well, first of all, are they one tree or two trees? Hi, Priscilla, was really like more or less smiling and saying, well, why are you asking this? I thought you would have figured that out by now, but not really to cause me any embarrassment. He says, okay, so you want to know whether it was one or two trees? And I said, well, yes. And he says, well, what do you think? I said, well, I actually think it is two trees because there were two creations. He says, well, you figured it out already. I says, well, yes, but somehow like something is still amiss. I thought, okay, I just want to know. Tell me in your own way more everything about those trees. Okay. So he says, so you want to know about both trees at the same time? I says, okay, well, let's start. I said, let's begin with the tree of good and evil. Now, because of course, Era knows that I am thinking numbers in everything. So I said, well, the tree of good and evil actually comes to 8. So he says, of course, you figure this out because the word good is 5 and the word evil, EVIL, is actually 3. So adding this together becomes 8. So I said, well, okay, that makes sense already. I was excited because I'm beginning to see how 8 has become the symbol of infinity, if you like, because that was already planted in the garden. So there was, and everything that is planted has to bring forth after its kind. So I'm thinking, well, why have they said that Eve was the one who created the sin and and is the evil one and and so many things like that. So I said, hi, Prince Aaron, help me out here. So we have the tree of good and evil, which comes to 8. So I says, oh, so could it mean that when they said that Eve ate of the fruit or of the tree or something like that, the fruit, that means the word ate, of course, ATE, could it mean the same thing? Because ATE is actually 8. He says, well, you are begin, he's saying, okay, well, it's like beckoning me on. So Eve ate, and Eve, of course, because when it, again, it is said that when God, everything, and this is another thing, everything God created, he saw it was good. So I says, but that's another thing I said, hi, Priest Aaron, I'm seeing like everything. Eve is in everything, isn't it? Eve is in everlasting. Eve is everywhere, in everything, and whatsoever you do, and whosoever you have, or it's like everything. And he's saying, well, yes. So I'm saying, well, why was it, if Eve is in everything, everything, why was it said that Eve was the first one, and Adam was the first one who was created, and Eve was created out of Adam? I thought, oh my. Well, anyway, Hyperseran says, look, just put this aside and we'll get on with this and everything will fall into place. So I said, tell me more about this tree. Okay, so I said, was it true that it was an apple that they ate? So Hyperseran says, well, apples, the Bible doesn't say apple. So I said, I know it doesn't say apple, but they've been saying it is apples. So I said, okay. So he says, well, apple makes sense. I says, well, why does apple make sense? Again, I'm thinking numbers. So the word apple, APPLE, is actually 17735. Adding this together is 10, 17, 18, 19, 23. So it's 23. I thought, okay, 2 plus 3 is 5. So I get that. Okay. So he said, what else do you know about apples anyway? I said, well, you can get apple juice, you can get apple pie, you can get apple crumble, you can get apple mac, And he said, well, apple is like, so that means, I'm saying, that means what? He's saying, so that means what? So, so I'm saying, okay, so are you saying that there are different types of apples then? He's saying, well, you've answered it. So, meaning apple is what? Apple is everything. I says, okay, oh, apple is in everything, just like in a pie. Okay, so when he said everything again, I remembered that I think that's what really High Priest Aaron was really trying to get me to think, because the name Eve, actually, EVE is 545, and adding this together is 14, and 1 plus 4 is 5. So I thought, wow, I get it. I'm beginning to get this. So he's saying, of course, now you're talking about the tree of good and evil, which you have seen is 8. And of course, corresponding with that which Eve ate. So I'm saying, but it sounds like Eve's title, Eve ate. Why didn't they just call her Yvette, like Eve, Evete? Why didn't they just say that? That's me having fun. And so I thought, well, that's really makes sense. So I'm saying again, so having the tree of good and evil in the garden, and he's saying to me, well, the story goes like this. He says, a very, very long time ago, so I think you better get your fork because this is getting better. He says, get your fork. I'm saying get your fork as well. He says, because we're going to dig in deep. And he says, a very long, long time ago, in the far distant future, came a time when everything was. I say, everything was. So he says, yeah, everything was. So again, I'm thinking numbers. So I'm looking at the word was, WAS, and I'm thinking this is 511. So this is 7. Okay. I'm saying, oh, but also the word was has in it as. So when something is as, you have something to make reference to, as in present. And he's saying, well, yes. So he's saying a very long, long time ago, in the far, far distant future, came a time. So when he said that a second time, I'm thinking, are you saying the time is like present? And he's saying, well, yes, it is present, like now. He says, yes. I says, well, so you mean like now, this minute? He says, yes. Like say like now in this 2020. He says, yes. And then I thought, oh, having said 20, the word time actually equals TIME, actually is 2954 equals 20. So I thought, oh, that is brilliant. So are we talking about 2020? Because I really want to know about 2020. But however, before I know much more about 2020, can you tell me about that tree that you said about a very long, long time ago in the far distant future came this time before? So what about the long, long time ago? So he's saying, but it is still in the far distant future, and it is still, and he's doing this. Okay. So he's saying, well, so I'm saying, does that mean everything is still like present? So in any case, well, that means that, but where's the tree? Where's the tree? The tree of good and evil. So he says, well, where do you think it is? So I said, well, help me out. I says, well, it was, must have been there in the long, long time ago. He's saying, the tree is everlasting. Everlasting, he's saying. I'm saying, but you're still saying like Eve is lasting. I thought, oh, and it's like, they'd say like the penny drop. I say, so that's what everlasting is. Eve is lasting. Eve is, because the R in ever, R is ever lasting. And I'm just going through that over and over, and he's saying, And he kind of just smiled as if, because he looked at me as if like, I think you got it. You've got it. I'm saying, so why don't they say, if they say that Adam was created before Eve, why don't they say Adam lasting? Why is it always said everlasting? Eve is lasting, or whenever, or whosoever, or moreover. Well, okay, I said moreover, and he says, well, that one is like, and I say whenever, whichever, whosoever, whatever, and I'm going like this and so on, and all of these terminologies, and he's saying, I think you get it. That is why he says we always use these as in that question form: where, when, who, what, how. And he says that's five. Five. And I said, I thought I counted another one somehow. Anyway, he says just so. I said to him, well, I really want to know more about this tree. And he says, but I've just told you, it's everlasting. So I says, well, where is it? He says, well, you've just answered it. It's everywhere. And I said, everywhere. So I said, wherever, whoever, whomsoever. And I was just uttering all this ever. And he says, it's everywhere and in everyone. Now that was delicious. When he said, and in everyone, then I understood that Eve is truly everlasting in everyone. Didn't you enjoy that? I certainly did when he helped me out with this. Stay ignited, wonderful people, because there's part 2 of this story coming up.